All right, what's up, everybody? Coach Kilburn here with a little review for you Adobe Photoshop Creative Cloud 2020 industry standard certification testers. So this really is for everybody, but it's mostly for those people that are going to certify. So I just wanted to go over a few things. First, guys, always have your layer panel open. So in that certification test, if you don't see the layer panel open that layer panel. Understanding what's going on in the layer panel is more important than anything, okay? So here's a couple of things. Guys, you need to know how to make groups, right? They're gonna ask you to make groups and name it and put certain layers in that group. So you just read the question and do what they're telling you to do, right? So to create a group, again, we go to the bottom of the layer panel to this folder, and we click to create a group. They'll either tell you to name it or they won't. If they tell you to name it exactly what they tell you to name it. If they don't tell you to name it, you just need to create it. Then they're going to tell you which layers to drag into that group, right? Guys, you'll know it's in the group because notice it's indented over. See, all these other layer thumbnails come straight down, but this one's over. Also, if you collapse the layer group and you don't see that, that means it's in the folder, it's in the group. So if I expand the layer group, there it is, okay? So you need to know how to create groups. You need to know how to put layers in that group, okay? All right, guys, also styles. They're gonna ask you to add styles to shapes and text and things like that, right? So first of all, make sure you're on the right layer. Every question, you need to be on the correct layer to get it correct, right? So we're gonna add a style to this big green circle right here, right? How do we get to styles? If you don't see the styles panel, all panels are found under window. Just go to window, they're all alphabetical, and go to styles, right? Guys, they may ask you for like maybe this green moss, right? If that's the case and you're on the right layer, you just click on it and you see it adds the style to that layer, okay? Guys, if they ask for like that blue glass button, well, remember that's a legacy style, right? And the sepia tone, if you get a question about they want you to add a sepia tone to a photograph, remember the blue glass button and the sepia tone are legacies. Legacy means old. So how do we load up the legacy buttons or the legacy styles? Come up here to these lines, click on it, and just follow legacy. Legacy styles. Again here, expand that folder for legacy styles. Expand this subfolder for legacy styles, right? Look in here, that's where that blue glass button will be. Right here, blue glass. Or they may ask for the sepia tone. Guys, if they ask for a sepia tone, it's an image effect, right? So in this case, we got to find our image effects. So here's the image effects. Sepia tone is an old technique. It comes from old photography. It's this one right here. Remember, if you hover your cursor over it, a balloon will pop up and tell you what it is. Right, so I want to add that sepia tone, but to another layer, to an image. So again, make sure your layer panel's open. Click on the correct layer. Right, we're going back to styles. I want to add that sepia tone. Right, image effects. Right, all right. Next thing, guys. Again, oh yeah, styles. They may ask you. No, we already did that. We already did that. They may ask you to create some guides. Right? So what they want you to do is maybe put a guide at the beginning of the text and maybe at what they call the baseline of text. So guys, on text, this bottom part, think of like an imaginary line that the text sits on. That's called the baseline. So in that case, you need your rulers open. How do you open your rulers? You go under View and Rulers. So if you don't see your rulers, go up to View because you got to view or see or look at the rulers. Go to Rulers. Right? You can just click and drag the guide down. They may want you to put one at the baseline of the text, and they may want you to put one at the beginning of the text. So you just drag it from this ruler. Boom, you'll get that question right. Okay, so you just need to know what the baseline is, right? You need to know where the beginning of the text is. You need to know how to open your rulers, right? All right, another question. They may ask you to display the rulers in a different increment. Just right click. Whatever the question tells you, pixels, centimeters, millimeters, whatever they tell you, all you got to do is right click on the ruler and change it to what they want, right? They may ask you to create a guide at a specific spot. They may say add a vertical guide at 600 pixels and a horizontal guide at 200 pixels. If that's the case, if it's a very specific spot, you don't drag. You go up to view. Why view? Because you view or look at a guide, right? We want to go to new guide. And you can't do them both in the same box. You got to do one and then the other. So again, if they say horizontal at 600, I'm sorry, horizontal at 200, do that one first. Here's our horizontal at 200, right? 200 on the ruler. And then I can add another one, new guide. They'll tell you in the question, vertical, we're going to go 600, right? Boom. So here's mine right here on the ruler, 600, right? So there's two ways to do guides, drag and drop to wherever they tell you, or go to view new guide if they tell you a specific spot, okay? All right, guys, you need to know how to work with type and text, especially leading, kerning, and tracking, right? So how do we do that? We got to open our character panel. Where do we open all panels? All panels come from window. And then we go to character, right? Then we just have to find it. So they, it's going to be something like this. Let me go back to the layer panel. I think they'll have a word, right? And the tracking is wrong. It's probably a negative, right? Let's go even more. Let's go even more. All right, so guys, look, there's not enough space between these characters. It's too tight, right? It's too tight. So we got to increase some space. So if you increase the space evenly between all characters, that's called tracking. So make sure you're on the right layer. You got to find the one called tracking. Again, if you hover your cursor over it, the balloon will tell you what it is. They'll tell you what to change the tracking to. So since these are too close together and it's on a negative, we need to probably come up here to a positive. It's going to add more space evenly between all the characters. Boom. So that's tracking. If we did kerning, kerning is only between two specific characters. Notice how this I takes up a lot space than the B or the G. So in that case, we may need to do some kerning, right? So you just got to find the one that deals with kerning, right? Hover over things, set the kerning, right? So they'll tell you what to change it to. You just do what the question tells you to do, right? Boom. So tracking is the equal amount of space between all characters. Kerning is the amount of space just between two characters, or leading is the space between lines of text this way. So we're talking about this amount of space. It's really the space from the baseline to the other baseline, right? So I've got two lines of text. I have two baselines. The leading deals between the space between this baseline and this baseline, right? So then I got to go to my leading here. Set the leading. Again, if I go a positive number, they're going to be further apart. I'm sorry, I'm thinking backward. Positive number, they're closer, right? So boom, right? The amount of space between each character, between each line of text, right? So the lower the number, the closer they are together, right? The higher the number, the further apart they are, right? So guys, that's leading, tracking, and kerning. All right, guys, they may ask you to change the fill of something, but without affecting the drop shadow, right? So watch, if I'm on this layer and I lower the opacity, so now we're talking about transparency. Not only does it lower the transparency of the text, it's also lowering the transparency of the drop shadow. But we don't want that. We only want to add transparency to the text, not the drop shadow. So how do you do that? That's the fill of the text. So watch now, if I lower the transparency on the fill, it does not affect the drop shadow. It's only affecting the fill of that layer or of that text, okay? So if they want you to change the transparency on an image, a shape, or text without affecting the layer style underneath, they're talking about the fill, okay? All right, what else? Guys, you need to know how to select things and add masks, right? So let's bounce over here to this other image. So you may have an image of a skyscraper, right? They may ask you to select the skyscraper and add a mask to protect it, right? So guys, look, I see a lot of people spending a lot of time selecting the skyscraper. Don't forget about the inverse. The inverse is the opposite, so think of math. Instead of using these tools and coming in here, there's so many different colors and different shapes, right? Like it's taking me a long time to select that. You can do it this way, guys. There's nothing wrong about doing it this way, right? But I want to show you a quicker way. So I'm going to Control D to deselect. Since the sky is all the same color, it's going to be much easier to select the sky, right? Then go to select, because we're dealing with a selection, and choose inverse. The inverse is the opposite. Now I have what I want. I have the skyscraper selected, right? So whether you select the skyscraper or you select the background and then inverse, it doesn't really matter. It's just quicker if you select the background because it's all the same color, right? And time is what? Time is money. So make that money, and this will also save you, a little bit of time on the test to do other things, right? How do we add a mask, right? We got to be on the layer in the layer panel, right? So I'm going to right click and make this an actual layer, right? As long as I'm on that layer, now I got to add a mask. Here's the mask, right? Notice the layer thumbnail. White reveals and black hides. Think of turning the lights on and you can see, or think of turning the lights off and you can't see. So your layer thumbnail tells you, it shows you what's going on. So look over here. See the white part? That's the skyscraper. It's revealing, it's showing the skyscraper. The black part, it's hiding. It's hiding this blue part right here, right? So if I Control Z or Edit Undo, now we see everything. But if I add a mask, white protects and black reveals, right? So you need to know how to do that. All right, guys. They may have you prepare an old image, an old black and white image. So let me come over here and grab an image really quick. All right, go to Google, go to old image repair. Find me a quick image. All right, can I find one? Can I find one? Yep, here's a good one. All right, so let's save that image, guys. They'll supply you with the image. It's going to be an old image, and maybe the side of it is torn, right? They're going to want you to use a tool to repair that part of the image. All right, so let's open up this old image. What I call it? Torn. There we go. So guys, it'll be an image something like this, right? There's going to be a bad piece of the image they want you to repair. I would use the spot healing brush, right? So you can resize your brush with the brackets on the keyboard, right? And you just click and drag over that bad area, and it's going to use the surrounding pixels to fill it in and fix it, right? Now that doesn't look great, but this isn't the best image, right? So maybe we just do this part right here. Boom, see how it repairs it? Spot healing brush. Boom, repairs it, right? Spot healing brush. Boom, repairs it, right? Also, guys, if they're talking about adding adjustments, destructively or non-destructively, remember that destructively means image adjustments and whatever they want you to do, right? You might get a question on vibrance where they want you to put the saturation at a certain number and put the vibrance at a certain number, right? So I haven't shown you vibrance and saturation right here, okay? So remember, this type of image adjustment is destructive. It actually destroys the original pixels, right? So if we look in our layer panel, we're just still on the background. It's actually changing the background. But if we use the adjustments panel, this adjustments panel is non-destructive. So watch what happens in the layer panel when I add it here. I think there's a vibrance over here somewhere. Again, you can use your keys, your cursor to find the balloon, right? I don't know if there's vibrance, but there's definitely a hue saturation, right? Where's vibrance? There you go, a vibrance. So when I click on this in the adjustments panel, that's non-destructive, right? Notice it adds another layer. It adds what we call an adjustment layer. Right? That's non-destructive. That does not destroy the original pixel value. It kind of just, it's on this copy. It's on this layer. So that's good. Okay. Guys, layer panel, that deletes. This makes a new layer group, adjustment layer. These are layer styles, right? So your inner shadow, stroke, bevel, emboss, right? All that stuff. All right, guys, if they tell you to unlock a layer, you just click on the lock. If they want you to lock the layer, here's your lock right here, boom. So clicking on the lock unlocks it. Clicking on the lock here locks it, all right? Guys, there may be a question about layer visibility. They're talking about these eyes, visibility, seeing, viewing, right? So there may be a question where this eye is closed. They'll tell you the layer. All you got to do is click on the eye. That's it, right? Or maybe the layer is visible. And they want you to toggle the layer visibility so it's not visible. You just close the eye, okay? All right. Guys, you need to know how to make shapes. Again, here's all your shapes. You may need to do one of those subtract front shape things, right? Guys, they may have you make a new swatch, right? In your swatches, guys, look, this plus is a new anything. That's a new swatch. If in my layers panel, that's a new layer, right? If I'm in my libraries panel, no, not libraries. Where's another one? Yeah, brush settings, brushes, right? Here's a new brush. So remember, you may have a question where they want you to create a new brush based on a certain size, right? So you got to be on your brush tool. They'll tell you the size. Then you make a new brush. You name the brush. They'll give you the name. You just name it whatever they tell you. Then they'll give you some settings. You got to go to the settings, right? They may give you a size jitter. They may give you an angle jitter, right? There's your new brush. Right, so guys, I think that covers a lot of it. Again, you need to know how to select and copy and paste. I'm not going to show you that because that's easy. So you need to know how to select one thing from one image and go and paste it on another image, right? And I think I went over a lot of stuff, right? So go over this stuff, make sure you understand all this stuff, and you should do just fine. Again, if you're scoring in the 8s and 900s in geometrics and you go over this review here, guys, you should be fine, okay? If I can think of anything else, I'll make another review video. All right, peace.